Hello and welcome. You're watching UTV Live at 6.
Good evening. These are the headlines.
Double killer Hazel Stewart fails in a bid to have her prison sentence reduced over coercive control claims.
Hazel Stewart accepts that she has to do her time. However, there was an issue at the heart of this case which was never dealt with.
The Infrastructure Minister insists that the halting of the A5 project is not insurmountable.
1 in 3 companies surveyed about post-Brexit trading arrangements says they've stopped trading across the Irish Sea because the demands are too challenging.
And farming is dangerous work. We speak to a farmer who's lucky to be alive about what can be done to make it safer.
Also tonight, UTV relives the rich and fascinating history of Cave Hill's lost village.
And we've got some sunshine on the way and something a little fresher as well. I'll have all the details coming up later in the programme.
Double murderer Hazel Stewart has failed in her latest attempt to secure a reduced sentence. The former Sunday school teacher was convicted of killing her policeman husband and the wife of her former lover, dentist Colin Howell.
She claimed that she was a victim of coercive control at the time of the murders, but in court today, 3 judges rejected this. Here's our crime and security correspondent, Sharon O'Neill.
Hazel Stewart, a victim of coercive control or willing participant with her now ex-lover in the double murder of her husband and his wife. Judge is very clear, she was no victim and has no right to appeal her sentence.
Hazel Stewart accepts that she has to do her time. However, there was an issue at the heart of this case which was never dealt with back in the day at her trial and subsequently in relation to further legal appeals. That issue needed to be litigated to its final position. Whether or not we've reached that final position remains to be seen.
The deaths of Constable Trevor Buchanan, who was 32, and 31-year-old Leslie Howell in the picturesque village of Castle Rock back in 1991 were staged to look like suicide. The truth only emerging 18 years later when her husband, dentist Colin Howell, confessed all and testified against his lover, telling authorities how she willingly went along with his plan. The case still captivating many to this day. It was even turned into an ITV drama starring Jimmy Nesbitt and was watched by millions.
Good evening, Constable. Hazel, how are you?
Thank you. Howell is serving a minimum 21 years in jail, while Stewart was ordered to serve at least 18. That jail term today ruled neither wrong nor manifestly excessive. This challenge, based on new evidence, claims the 62-year-old was suffering from depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and was under coercive control of Howell at the time of the murders. The Sunday school teacher's second husband in court for the ruling, as were relatives of the husband she was convicted of murdering.
Hazel Stewart didn't appear in the dock for this decision, but you could see her on video link from jail, not looking very different to the woman you would see walking into court during her trial way back in 2011. When the judges dismissed her grounds for appeal, she showed no emotion. Lady Chief Justice Dame Siobhan Keegan said this was a double murder of spouses in the cruelest of circumstances. She hit out at the stress and upset. This third appeal attempt will have caused the families of those killed.
The public will have very little sympathy for Hazel Stewart.
This is a notorious case and it has been very, very difficult for so many people. It's a case that I think has now reached its final stage.
Hazel Stewart and Colin Howell, their names and their terrible crimes, infamous. Both will now have to serve out the rest of their sentences.
And Sharon joins us now in the studio. So we've heard from the family of one of the victims.
Yes, a very moving statement, Paul, from the family of Leslie Clark, the wife Howell and Stewart murdered. Clark is Leslie's maiden name. Now, the family maintain that Stewart knew exactly what she was doing all along. Now, Leslie's daughter said appeal after appeal shows a complete lack of remorse and failure to take responsibility for her actions. But she adds that her mother's beautiful memory will not be overshadowed by this, and her family will continue to love and honour the person that her mother was.
Sharon O'Neill, thank you very much.
The Infrastructure Minister says that she doesn't believe the High Court's decision to halt the A5 project is insurmountable.
Liz Kimmins was facing questions from a Stormont committee in the wake of a judge's ruling that the £1.7 billion scheme does not comply with the executive's climate commitments. Paul Riley reports.
Questions remain for Liz Kimmins 48 hours after a court quashed plans for the A5 upgrade, and today's scrutiny committee at Stormont cut to the chase.
It's now a mess. Whose fault is it?
There were 7 grounds for this challenge. Only 3 of them have been upheld. So, as I've said earlier in the week, I don't think it's insurmountable. I think that we can overcome this, and that's what I'm determined to do.
Most members raised why some works investing of farmland had proceeded after the legal challenge to the £1.7 billion project was first lodged. The DUP's Keith Buchanan was particularly pointed in his questioning.
This decision is going to cost tens of millions of pounds. Do you agree or disagree? This wrong decision is going to cost tens of millions of pounds. So the difference between halting the project to the court ruling was made to now we know what cost is going to be incurred.
The flip side of that is that halting the project and then a positive judgment and then trying to restart it also had a significant cost.
You have to take risks, measured and appropriate risks, to be able to deliver projects.
This was a sure thing. You didn't expect the judgment. The difficulty with this A5 project, it's head or heart. I'm not saying it doesn't need to go ahead, but I think the heart overruled the head.
More than 50 lives have been lost on the existing A5 over the past 2 decades. Minister Kimmins says she's already met the Environment Minister to discuss Monday's ruling that the upgrade breaches parts of Stormont's Climate Act. She told MLAs her department expects to receive a detailed legal briefing in the coming days.
That will hopefully help us to identify what the next steps will be or what the options are to realistically help to move this forward and find solutions at the earliest possible stage.
Also raised the legal challenge to her decision to fund Irish language signage at Grand Central Station, and as revealed by UTV last night, that her executive colleague, the DUP's Gordon Lyons, has now applied to intervene in support of the action being brought by loyalist activist Jamie Bryson.
If I had felt that it was cross-cutting, I would have took it to the executive. So obviously the decision not to, because it wasn't recommended to go to the executive for that reason. So if that had been,
Minister, this is not about you feeling.
No. But
this
if
is
you
about
let me finish, this is also another minister's opinion. So we will work through that through the legal challenge, and I think that's all I'll say in relation to that.
Paul Riley, UTV Live.
The Federation of Small Businesses says that the Windsor framework is causing widespread disruption to trade. A report on the impact of the framework has found many companies in Great Britain have stopped trading to Northern Ireland.
Companies were also critical of the assistance which is available from the government to help navigate the difficulties. Well, Jordan Moats has been looking at the figures. Jordan.
Yes, Rose, well, businesses have been talking about the complexities of the Windsor framework for some time now. In this survey for the FSB, nearly 60% of those who responded said they were facing moderate to significant challenges trading from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. As a result of that, over a third of companies say they have ceased trading rather than deal with the demands. The FSB is concerned agreements aren't working as they should.
I think we've come a long way from the initial break out of the EU, and we had the Northern Ireland Protocol, and then we had the Windsor Framework, and all of these have been lots of sticking plasters to try and stop the bleeding, but actually underneath there's still a wound that needs to be addressed. The system is not yet functioning properly to facilitate free trade and easy trade. We need to address that. There are recommendations in the report, things that could be done to make this work a lot better, and if we get that right, then the much vaunted dual market access could actually operate, but at the moment the market access within the UK alone is clearly compromised. That's not good enough.
When it comes to support in navigating some of the problems, the figures aren't great for the government. 78% say government support is poor or very poor, and 80% say they find it difficult to access help. Those figures were put to the Secretary of State at Westminster this morning.
We should do all that we can to make sure that the information that we provide to businesses helps them to understand what the rules are, to navigate their way through them, and to make them operate effectively for the business itself. The question I would ask as follow-up, if you think that aspects of the service are not very good, well, in what way? What is your feedback? How do you think it could be improved? Because we have to take a practical approach. What is it about what you can see at the moment that doesn't work for you? What are your suggestions for how it could be improved? And that is something that we will talk to businesses about.
When it comes to dual market access, 14% said they didn't understand the benefits of it, with nearly 90% saying the government has failed to communicate it effectively. And that seems to fit with what InvestNI has seen when dealing with companies.
There was a relatively low level of awareness of the dual market access proposition. I felt that was one of the explanations for why we hadn't seen traction in our work in progress and our inward investment pipeline around the dual market access opportunity. And it really is a real opportunity for businesses. So in the first year of our strategy over the last 12 months, our executives have been out in the marketplace more aggressively promoting the message around dual market access, and we've seen some traction. Companies beginning to sit down with us and say, tell us more about that opportunity. How would it work in practice? How would we operationalise it?
Some stark figures from the FSB that will give the government the message that work still needs to be done.
John Moats, thank you.
The Public Prosecution Service is considering whether or not there are grounds to appeal the sentence imposed on a GP who was convicted of possessing and downloading images and videos of children being sexually abused. Alan Trevor Campbell was sentenced to 75 hours of community service after being convicted of having over 200 indecent images of children, some of which were among the most extreme category of child abuse images.
A new survey claims over 80% of victims in Northern Ireland are not confident they will receive justice by reporting a crime. The survey from the Commissioner for Victims of Crime Office says nearly 60% of those surveyed felt the police did not investigate allegations thoroughly, and nearly half felt that they were not given enough support during the court process. The Justice Minister, Naomi Long, said her department would continue to engage with criminal justice partners to address gaps in services.
The health unions have urged the executive to provide funding for a pay increase, which is estimated to cost £200 million. Today, unions met with the Health Minister over what's being done to secure the rise. Last week, Mike Nesbitt signed off on the increase, despite not having the budget to cover it.
Some schools in Northern Ireland could be formally instructed to set up provision for children with special educational needs due to a crisis over places. Over 160 children may be without a school place this September. The Education Minister, Paul Givan, has recently written to 58 schools requesting their support with new SEN provision. Farms are the most dangerous workplaces in Northern Ireland. The average age of farmers is increasing. Many work alone and heavy machinery is being used more often.
Well, tonight we're continuing with our special series focusing on rural issues by taking a look at farm safety and what's being done to make the industry safer.
Our correspondent Gareth Wilkinson has spoken to one farmer about the lesson he learned after surviving a serious accident in his own yard in Crumlin.
I was born on this farm, and so was my father before that. We've been here nearly 4 generations since I came home from Greenmount in '67. Went into dairying, and it's been that ever since.
Farming is in Dennis Minford's DNA. It's not just a job, it's a way of life that so nearly killed him. Knocked down on his own farmyard by a tractor reversing a trailer.
All my ribs are broken. My lungs were punctured. My back was fractured in 3 places. My pelvis was fractured. And my collarbone was fractured.
Dennis blames himself for a momentary lapse in concentration, a mistake that could have been fatal.
The doctor told my wife if I get over 24 or 48 hours, I'd probably make it. So I was 3 weeks in induced coma, and then it took me nearly a year to get back on my feet.
Dennis's accident happened in 2001. He recovered from the brink of death and eventually returned to work. But farms remain hazardous places and others have not been as fortunate. In the last 10 years, 55 people have died in farming accidents. The average age of those killed is 63.
It's one of the most dangerous industries in Northern Ireland. We're finding across all of the industries, it's an industry that has the most accidents and incidents.
Gemma Mooney is working to make farmyards safer.
Part of your job would be to look at machinery like this?
Absolutely, yes.
She's an inspector for Northern Ireland's Health and Safety Executive.
Machinery like this today, we're looking at visibility, being sure that the driver can see out, mainly the farmer, and anybody else that's on the farm then can see the driver if they need to communicate with them.
Gemma says farmers have nothing to fear from her inspections. They're about providing advice, not imposing penalties.
It's about trying to get the farmer to think about what they're going to do with the machinery, making sure that their areas that they're working in is as safe as possible, making sure their machinery is as safe as possible.
Over the last decade, 11 people have died while working with agricultural machinery, but it hasn't been the biggest killer. In the same period, livestock has claimed the lives of 14 farmers.
And in your role, unfortunately, you have to deal with families who have suffered loss, fatalities?
Yes, so part of our role is if there is a fatality, we'll go out and we'll investigate, or a serious accident, we'll go out and try and investigate to find out what's happened.
To learn lessons in the future, because it's devastating.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're still driving machinery?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts every day when you climb up into the tractor?
I suppose it's still with me, and probably to the day I die.
You're talking to us here today. Why are you talking to us today?
I know it's hard, but for me personally, but if it saves some other guy's life, that he sees me here today, and one life is still worth saving, and that's the way I look at it.
Still to come on the programme. We open a window on the history of the long-lost village of Whitewell.
And we're in the swim with an amazing father and daughter who are set to represent Ireland at the World Aquathlon Championships in Spain. Do stay with us. Hello once again, you're watching UTV Live with Rose and Paul. A reminder of tonight's top stories. Double killer Hazel Stewart fails in a bid to have her prison sentence reduced over coercive control claims.
And the Infrastructure Minister insists the halting of the A5 project isn't insurmountable.
Time now to look at the headlines making tonight's ITV News at 6:30.
Here's Lucrezia Millarini.
Coming up on tonight's ITV Evening News, a man is found guilty of murdering 14-year-old Daniel Angerin during a samurai sword rampage in Hainault last year. ITV News uncovers a startling rise of ketamine addiction amongst children as young as 12. And Arise Sir Gareth, the former England boss, gets a knighthood. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
The rich history of a long-lost village on Cave Hill in North Belfast has been brought back to life in a new book. Whitewell Village was torn apart when the M2 motorway was constructed, and that was back in the 1960s.
The book tells the fascinating tales of people who lived there, from the Blitz to plane crashes and even a controlled demolition which didn't go exactly to plan. Daniel Duffy reports.
If a story isn't told, it's a story lost forever. A new book and film tells the tale of a lost village, its people, and what life was like on the slopes of Cave Hill. The Whitewell was a community that was torn apart once the M2 motorway was built. There were houses on this part of Cave Hill north of Belfast Zoo, while many people worked in the laundry mill. It was closed in 1964, and this UTV archive footage shows the controlled demolition didn't go exactly to plan.
When the M2 motorway was going to pass very close to it, they decided to demolish the large chimney, and they misjudged the distance that some of the debris would reach, and some of it went across the Collinbridge estate and broke windows in a lady's house, and mud and stuff come through into her living room, caused quite a bit of damage. Some of the cars parked at the laundry were also damaged, and I think the contractor's own van was damaged as well. So I don't think the rules and regulations in those days were just as strict.
Many people are familiar with the tragic plane crash on Cave Hill when 10 American airmen died in 1944. This book highlights a lesser-known crash which took place a year earlier. 3 planes took off from Ballyhalbert, 2 crashed near Lisburn, while a Polish pilot crashed into the Cave Hill just above the Whitewell.
Zygmunt, the third person, he crashed above the Whitewell and placed his Spitfire between 2 metal gate posts and slowed his speed down. Survived the crash with a broken ankle and some broken ribs, and made his way down to the Whitewell, where he was taken to the constabulary barracks there, which was just off the Antrim Road on the lane up to Bellevue. We contacted an aviation military expert, John Quinn, and he confirmed the story, got us the details, the name of the Polish person, even the number of his plane, a photograph of him, and we used those in the film and the book.
And you can see more on this fascinating story on ITVX. Just go to the news section and select UTV.
This Friday, a father and daughter from Londonderry will represent Ireland at the World Aquathlon Championship in Spain.
Primary school teacher Eddie Burton and his daughter Lily May both qualified for their respective categories in the swimming and running event. Our reporter Jordan Moore caught up with the dynamic duo.
Yes, last lap! Last lap, let's go!
For Derry primary school teacher Eddie, you're never too young to start running. And it seems representing Ireland alongside his daughter Lily May at the World Aquathlon Championships in Spain isn't too much of a stretch either.
Once I knew this year was in Pontevedra, which is known as the home of triathlon, I thought Lily May, it'd be great for her to do it because she's a great runner. She used to swim a lot as a kid.
Aquathlon includes running and swimming, and you can't do much swimming in school, so it's into the van, quick change, and into the water. Both have been training at Enoch Loch at least twice a week in preparation, alongside a strict running regime. Quite the effort for someone studying for her A-levels, but Lily May wouldn't have it any other way.
We've all been involved in sport, like me and my sisters, probably because of him, and he's introduced me to like triathlon and aquathlon recently. Sometimes it could be a bit tiring, but then it's like quite rewarding, and I see training as almost like a break for my studies, so then I can just use that as a break in between my revision.
Eddie has always been a keen runner, competing alongside the likes of 2-time Olympic gold medalist Seb Coe in his youth, and at 54 he keeps putting one foot or hand in front of the other, despite numerous setbacks.
2012 I had my 7th knee operation, and the specialist said if you run any more you'll need a new hip very soon. 2 years after that I started doing triathlon. So I just, there were some times when I'm in pain, but I just love the feeling of competing, and I love the feeling of exercising. So it's a great combination. And as Lily May said earlier, I try to get my children involved in sport. My older daughter now does Gaelic and she does rugby, and Lily May and our younger daughter does Gaelic as well as running and swimming. So it's just great to, for their well-being.
Eddie and Lily May will compete in their respective races on Friday, and win or lose, his pupils will be cheering them all the way. Jordan Moore, UTV Live, Derry.
Best of luck to both of them. It's time for the weather next.
Here's Aisling.
Feel good weather is set to continue throughout the day. UTV Weather, sponsored by the Grant Irona R290 heat pump.
Hello there, good evening to everyone at home. There's been a fair amount of cloud around today. Most of us had skies a little something like this. Always some bright and sunny spells managing to break through, and 1 or 2 splashes of rain around. Very interestingly though, over the next 18 hours or so, we've got a brief push of some fresher air before the jet stream then pushes northwards, and with that reintroduces some humidity. As we head through the rest of tonight then, still some showers around, and in general overnight a weather front on the way, a lot of cloud, showery outbreaks of rain, but by the end of the night temperatures still holding up at around 13 degrees Celsius, so relatively speaking a mild start first thing tomorrow morning. Now plenty of cloud around, showery outbreaks of rain at first. All of that's going to clear away and we'll see sunshine breaking through, 1 or 2 isolated showers, but in that sunshine it is going to feel fresher than today. Temperatures then getting up to around 18 degrees Celsius, and that is around average for the time of year. Now across the rest of Ireland, a cloudy start here as well with some rain, but then 1 or 2 showers spreading in with some good spells of sunshine, but signs of the next weather front just spreading into the far southwest here. A cloudier day here with some outbreaks of rain, but temperatures around average, highs of around 19 degrees Celsius. Now as we head from Thursday into Friday, we see that weather front pushing northwards and eastwards. So a soggy day to come on Friday, outbreaks of rain throughout much of the day. Despite the cloud and the rain though, it is going to feel quite humid. Temperatures getting up to around 21 degrees Celsius. But you will notice all the while in the outlook, you can see that it's remaining quite blustery. On Saturday there'll be some morning showers around, but it looks drier in the afternoon. And overall, once we get past Thursday, temperatures are looking above average for the time of year.
UTV weather, sponsored by the Grant Arona R290 heat pump.
Making the most of summer, Perry sponsors UTV pollen count.
Well, the main source of pollen at the moment is from grass pollen. It's going to be high on Thursday. It will drop to moderate on Friday with so much rainfall around, and then bounce back up to high on Saturday. Bye-bye.
And with the time at almost 6:30, that's the latest news from UTV Live at 6 this Wednesday, the 25th of June. Paul will be back with our late bulletin, and it will be at about 10:30.
The ITV News continues with Lucrezia Millarini, from Rose, from me, and the rest of the Tea Time team. Good evening.
Good evening.